There's a lot of feelings I have on this week's ROH. Some good, some bad, some downright ugly.
And we're
But we
back.
will cover. Yeah, yes, we're back. Well, I mean,
I'm back.
it's been a
I'm
couple of
back.
weeks.
You've
You're
been here.
back. I've been holding down the fort. I'm just kidding. I missed you, Jesse. But
I
hi,
missed
all you
you
beasts.
too. Let's
Yeah,
talk a almost 2 hour Ring of Honor episode that I actually enjoyed. I'd say about 85% of it, which is rare for me.
right. It. We'll talk about it. But hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds, and welcome to another rendition of the Bi-Conic Review of Honor, otherwise known as the Bro. Your weekly Ring of Honor review team. It is Mikey and Jesse as of right now, holding down the fort. JVL is out getting lost in the lands of the sound of music, and Andrew canonically may or may not be stuck on Le Toila. So,
New head
you
canon.
know,
He's definitely stuck. There was super glue involved.
yeah, he got super glued onto the toilet. But me and Jesse are going to be here to review this week's Ring of Honor, which took place June 20th, 2024. Jesse, it's you know what? This episode was actually kind of great, and it was been a definite improvement over the last couple of weeks for sure. It seems like now we have a direction of where we're going with certain
We're
things.
getting some stories.
It's kind of crazy. But yeah, as Jesse had said before, it's about a 2 hour Ring of Honor, so we got a lot to cover. But Jesse, before we do, hands in, we got to do
All right.
the bro handshake. All right, let's get into it. So Ring of Honor opens up this week. We had a match between Aaron Solo and from I think CMLL, yeah,
Yep.
CMLL Titan, who has made his way back. You know, this was a match.
You know what? I thought it was pretty good. It was my first experience with Titan. I knew as soon as Aaron Solo came out, I was like, okay, he's going to lose, which is unfortunate because Aaron Solo is very talented. But overall,
Mm-hmm.
not a bad match to start the show. Not the best one on the card, but certainly not the worst one.
No, and then again, this was placed perfectly. As you said, this opened up the match. It didn't go for too long. I agreed with you. As soon as I saw Aaron Solo, I'm like, he's probably losing this one, but that's okay. I mean, Titan pulls up the win here, so who knows if we're gonna be seeing more of him in ROH. I hope so.
It seems like they're
But
pushing a lot of CMLL crossovers, which is good.
which is really nice, especially since we got the Forbidden Door pay-per-view for AEW coming up really, really soon. So okay, so this is where things get interesting for us. So we had a trios match, and I wanted to take a massive side eye to this
Yeah.
when I saw it on paper. But by the end of this match, I kind of enjoyed it. So we have the Mama's Boys, so Griff Garrison and Cole Carter being accompanied by Maria Kanellis, teaming up with Anthony Henry of the Workhorsemen, taking on the team of Serpentico minus an Angelico and the Infantry. So yeah, at first I was like, why are we missing some people for the tag team partners? But by the end of this match, I was like, I actually enjoyed this match a lot more than I thought I was going to.
I was half expecting there to be a singles match between JD Drake and Angelico at one point, like
Right?
immediately after this, just because we had the kind of mixed tag teams there. When I first saw this, when Andrew sent it to us in a group message, I was skeptical. Like, why? Why are we doing this? And I still don't understand the why. It doesn't make sense. However, the match itself was really well done. I was very impressed. And I will say this, and I will say this kind of in the spirit of JVL, who's not here right now. Never in the world did I think that there would be Anthony Henry and Cole Carter in the same match, and I would be entertained the whole time.
Yeah, I was very surprised. This ended up being a really fun match, and I actually like there might be some ramifications because there was some shenanigans that went on that allowed Anthony Henry and the Mama's Boys to pick up the win here over
And
the
Anthony
Infantry
Henry
and
to get another
Serpentico,
win.
which is great. As much as I like the Mama's Boys and giving them the copious amounts of crap that we do sometimes, I am happy to see that Anthony Henry coming back from broken jaw has been slowly on the incline with both as a singles wrestlers and with his
He
tag team
seems to be
partner.
moving more confidently too. I think he found his color. I think Anthony Henry blue hair is much better than Anthony Henry green hair.
Oh yeah, blue hair is where it's at. So we might be seeing more of this. Of course, the Mama's Boys are forever feuding with Serpentico and the rest of SAP in some capacity. So we're probably going to get told this. I'm hoping, the only thing I will say, I hope that the infantry will be given something more to do than just be like, hey, we're gonna do
Oh,
this
who's
thing.
that?
But hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. We're
Hi.
talking about Chris Jericho versus Bill Goldberg.
No.
Dream match of the century? Match of a
Everyone
lifetime?
agrees.
Totally. We love to see it. No, so you haven't missed too much, Andrew. We just are talking right now. We're currently talking about Anthony Henry and the Mama's Boys taking on Serpentico and the infantry.
Wait, so you already got past Aaron Solo and Teton?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a bummer because that was one of the few matches I actually liked.
We,
Give us your
we were
thoughts
in the
then.
same agreement there, but fill us in.
Oh no! It was just that was like one of the few matches I had something positive to say about.
Uh oh.
Okay, so
All right.
it's going to be a bit of a dichromatic night, so let's keep going.
Okay, so like I said, the Mama's Boys and Anthony Henry pick up the win here. So then we get an on the ramp segment where we have a minion and an MIP and a minion empowerment moment here, in which we have Athena and Billy Starks come on out. Athena lets us know that basically we have heard and we saw that she took a tumble and she torn some ligaments in her ankle and she is going to be out 4 to 6 months, which is a bummer.
46
But
months.
also now I'm
Months, yeah.
that's what she said.
46 months is so long.
4 to
Four
6
to
months.
six months.
Okay.
It's Mikey's accent.
What
Yeah,
accent? I live in
the
California.
Southern
What?
Californian accent.
Yeah.
I hate both of you. But Athena is going to be out 4 to 6 months, which then prompts Queen Aminata and Red Velvet to come out and interrupt to question the validity of how seriously injured Athena actually is, given the fact that both Athena and Billy Starks within the past couple matches have resorted to faking injuries in order to get one up on their enemies. What I found quite interesting was the fact that we all love Athena and Billy Starks, we really do. But the crowd was booing Queen and Red Velvet as if they were the heels in this situation. And I gotta say, the girls were kind of also giving me heel energy, which was a
Yeah.
very interesting dichotomy with it. And Billy just like, oh hell no, headbutts, a bra breaks out. Billy gets pushed into Athena. Medical staff has to come and get Athena to the back. And that is how we end this segment. I was very intrigued. I was like, wow, so Queen and Red are giving me heel energy, and I'm kind of here for it.
I
This was a great segment. I thought Athena's whole delivery was so emotionally charged that I bought into every bit of it. But then Queen coming out, and the timing on it was spot on because now you had me going, is she actually faking this? Like, are they just pushing this till they get to was it Death Before Dishonor, the next one? Like, is this just a way
Yeah,
for them
Death
to
Before Dishonor
stretch
at the
that
end of
out?
July.
So
Yep.
the whole segment I thought was really well done.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Athena is actually injured. If from what I'm hearing is correct, she's actually injured, but not nearly as bad as they're making it out to be. Um,
So not 46 weeks.
no. More like 4 to 6. Um, but yeah, I was wondering that too. If they're unintentionally, I won't go there.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but I'm digging it down.
Uh, I wonder if they're unintentionally turning Athena and Billy back into faces, and Queen and Red Velvet into heels. Like up until now, it's felt like that's they were supposed to be the faces, and then they came out in the way that they were reacting, the way they were talking, the way they were dressed, all that stuff. Especially because everyone was behind Athena with her like, is she gonna give up the title? And everyone was like, keep it, keep it, keep it. So Yeah, it's interesting the way that things are playing out, but I hope they go with what organically happens because it's interesting.
Honestly, this is really the only story we have consistently gotten in ROH over the last pretty much since post Supercard of Honor, and this is the only thing that's carrying us through. Though we'll talk about certain other things that are happening, but who knows what this is going to mean, especially with Athena being out for as long as she is, or might be shorter than that. But Athena is out for a little bit. I also love that the fact they didn't make her give up the title because again, I would have used the argument. I was like, you let Wheeler Yuta hold on to that championship,
Yeah.
and you're not going to let Athena, but Athena's holding on to this. Whoever is going after Billy, Red, Queen, don't care. It's going to be
I mean, they're
fantastic.
letting Mark Briscoe hold it for when's the last time we saw it? So what's
Oh,
the
don't even
difference?
get me started. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like Wheeler, who the hell is that guy? Because I keep forgetting he even actually has a title, let alone that he's associated with Ring of Honor.
Athena and Billy have been carrying Ring of Honor on their backs with these titles. And then I also throw Kyle Fletcher into the mix too, because this man is the only champion to defend his title on ROH, which is kind of nuts. So we go from this segment, we get into pretty much a squash match here where we have Jacoby Watts and Nick Camarado coming out. Jacoby cuts a praise be to the light that is Jacoby Watts promo. And then we get the EVP's best friend, Brandon Cutler, to come out. And then we get a squash match, which was like less than 2 minutes. Jacoby Watts gets a win over Brandon Cutler. And that's, how this whole entire thing went. I'm confused.
I
Yeah,
didn't get this. Like, it wasn't even really a competitive match. I thought Brandon Cutler had the upper hand pretty much the entire time, and then Jacoby Watts hits a. I will say this, and I'll take the shame and blame when I get it. One of the ugliest stunners I've ever seen, and then gets the win. Like, it didn't work for me. It did not make sense to me.
yeah. I'm confused on who we're supposed to be rooting for because I thought up until this we were supposed to not be rooting for Jacoby Watts, and then they send out Brendan Cutler to be more of a douchebag than he's being. I mean, like, yeah, it was just super weird, and then the ending was kind of out of nowhere. I didn't quite rule this a squash, especially compared to some of the other matches that we got that were just pointless squatches. But I'm still so confused by this whole
Like,
storyline.
I can see the only purpose of this is to have Nick Camarado be like the one that's in the middle of this and us rooting for him. Excuse me, Nick Camarado, because his voice doesn't match his body.
Well, okay, that's a point, but I'm confused as to what we're doing with Jacoby and Nick Camarado because, again, I feel like we're telling the story in so out of sequential order. It is ridiculous. And then on top of that, too, there's a chunk of the story that's missing in between this. They got taped when I went to the ROH tapings a couple weeks ago, and we still have yet to see it. So I don't know if that got scrapped onto the cutting room floor because Jacoby's getting a win, and the story you're presenting to me so far is Jacoby's actually winning. Nick continues to lose to everybody. This does not make no sense because the amount of gaslighting and everything that has been happening with this story, I'm just like, I don't know what we're doing anymore.
Yeah,
I still want to like this premise, but you are telling the story out of order and it's starting to get on my nerves.
I'm pretty sure the way that you are feeling and we're all feeling about this story is how everyone involved is feeling in this story. I don't think anyone understands what
Yeah.
happened.
Man, and it kind of sucks too for both Nick and Jacoby and everybody else involved in this. But the booking team needs to get it together. But speaking of getting things together, Marina Shafir took on Maggie Minerva in this match, and you know what? In the words of you know, not to get demonetized, it's like you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Marina Shafir is the problem. So this was the squash match for what it was. I okay, how do I put this nicely? I love Marina Shafir. I am a big fan of hers. I thought we were going somewhere else with what happened in the match last week that she was involved in, and apparently not. So Uh, at this point, I'm like, you're pushing Marina to be at the top of this women's division, or you're pushing her to be a mainstay. Let's have first start a program with somebody that's actually on the roster, not continue to give her squat. This is my official blanket statement for everything else. You have your regular ROH talent. If we're going to give them squash matches, like I get it in some capacity, but now let's start having them feud with actual people that are actually on your roster for the whole time. I like Marina. She won this match. There's nothing more I can say.
I got
Yeah, the
something to say.
Go for it, Jesse.
I don't like her finish. I don't
Mm,
like it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't really make sense. Maybe I'm talking out of my behind because both of you look kind of stonewalling me right now. But
well, I'm thinking about it. Like, on the one hand, I can see where you're coming from. But then again, given the fact that her background is more of an MMA than anything else, it kind of makes sense for what she's portraying.
I
But I
don't know
do
any
hope
MMA
that.
where you smother somebody with your chest. Like,
um, I mean, I personally like her finish. I think she sells it really well, and the name is I kind of like the name they gave to it. Um, but I agree also with Mikey is that they this whole squatch thing, like you can do squatches throughout a feud with somebody else, and I think they just need to do more with folks. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense for going for too long with this. But I don't know. I like the style and the approach they're using for her. For me, it just comes across as she's dangerous, but she's like a pro fighting amateurs dangerous right now. Let's see her fight some other pros.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but if we were gonna have people feud, if you want to push over how dangerous Marina is, have her feud with somebody who is equally as dangerous and can lead Marina through what she needs to. Hell, put her against Mercedes Martinez. Like that would be a program that I would be here for. I thought we were getting Leyla and Marina feuding in some capacity, but it seems that Leyla, who I'm happy to see is getting more screen time within the last couple of weeks, she's probably going to be involved in a different feud, which I'm happy for, but I also have questions. But we move on from this one. We get a backstage promo with the Undisputed Kingdom. They talk about how every time that, all these different publications and things like that talk about the best tag teams in the world, that the Undisputed Kingdom is never mentioned. And to some extent, I was like, they're not wrong now that I think about it. And they list, well, of course, because of the company that they're in, they list those tag teams. But I'm like, yeah, how come nobody talks about the Kingdom? Because they talked about, Motor City Machine Guns, they talked about the Bucks, and they listed all these other teams. But their biggest complaint is that nobody talks about the Undisputed Kingdom. But because you have these clowns, as they call 2.0, they just ask for a title shot and they get one. The Undisputed Kingdom is like, you know what? We're gonna prove why we are the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champs, and that's pretty much the segue into their championship match later in the evening. I like the Undisputed Kingdom. This promo just served the purpose to set up the match, though they did have some grievances that I kind of agree with. I was like, yeah, how come nobody talks about the Kingdom when we talk about best tag teams currently in wrestling right now? Because I think they're hella fantastic, and they need more respect. That's just me, though.
I give you that. I disagree with their point saying that they just got to ask for a title match and they got it. But but one of them beat you cleanly. Like there's some justification behind it, but aside from that, it was a promo. It served its purpose. It set up the match later.
Um, I will say that part of the issue is that we've yet to see the Undisputed Kingdom other than a proving ground match that was clearly used because they hadn't set anything up to set up a tag team to face them at a pay per view, which then they won through shenanigans. We haven't seen them face any of the other established tag teams in Ring of Honor, at least in quite some time. So you could make an argument that they're not having the best looking run as tag team champions. But not to go off too far in another direction, something that listening to this um, made me realize is we're getting Death Before Dishonor 6 days before TNA's pay per view Slammiversary, and there's already so much more set up for that pay per view than we have for this, and it just listening to them talk about the tag team titles has just made me really concerned because I feel like we're going to get another Super Card of Honor where it's like, oh, we got a couple of stories and then we'll just throw some stuff together for this thing, and it's like you're just continuing the same problems.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm not going to speak onto it, but Andrew, you're right. Check out our TNA review if you want to hear more of that. But again, it feels like we always run it, at least this year so far,
Yeah.
we run into this problem with ROH where there are multiple ways that you could get to Death Before Dishonor, but nothing is consistent enough for me to say, I don't even know where we're going with half of this. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll talk about the championship match later in the evening because we move on to another squash match, kind of, where we have the Iron Savages and Jack Jamison taking on the local job squad of Eric and Zait, Isaiah Harris, and Jay Marston. I'm just gonna say this before we get into the actual match itself. Somebody take the microphone away from Jack Jamison. Normally, his mic work is either hit or miss for me half the time. Somebody just take the mic away from him. Don't, I'm like, shh, don't speak. It's okay. Like the promo was bad. Let's start with there before we get into the match. This promo was bad, you guys. This was bad.
His mic work was bad, but actually he did better in the ring than he has been in a while because it was so limited. So it's really not saying much. We're really grading against the curve here, but he didn't hurt anyone. It was a squash. It's the Iron Savages got a win. It's first time in a while, but
I
nah.
feel so bad for my big boys.
I I feel like it's such a bad choice to continue with their gimmick that they had as faces now that they're heels, because at first it was I just can't take them seriously as heels. Now it's just coming off as bad. Like it is just
Mhm.
it's not working at all. Um, they're not even a good comedic team at this point. Like I'm not entertained by it. I hate to say this because it's the Iron Savages, but I could have done without this match.
No, you're not necessarily wrong. I kind of agree with it because I can't take. Not to say that I took the Iron Savages seriously when they were more face when Ring of Honor first started and everything, but now I can't take them seriously because they're. This is literally copyright infringement because I'm like calling the audience fat and everything. I'm like, that's what the premier athletes did for such a long time, and Tony Nese did it too. That's like gimmick infringement right there. I don't think they have any idea what they want to do. Use the Iron Savages and Jack Jamison for. And I kind of want them to go back to being comedic faces because that's where it worked better. And again, there's been no follow up. They got attacked by Luchas like Killosaurus like a couple weeks
Lucha
ago on
Switch.
AEW program. Lucha Switch, Killosaurus, whatever you want to call that man. But there's just such weird booking in ROH right now. Nobody knows what to do with a lot of the folks, and it makes me very sad. Iron Savages and Jack Jamison picked up the win for anybody that cares, but I didn't. My boys, not my boys.
Before we move to the next match, there was a commercial in between this and the next match that, since I don't watch AEW, I hadn't seen this one yet. And it had a promo from
Oops.
John Moxley where he said, there's only three letters that matter, BCC. And I was like, isn't that just two letters? Sorry, there,
I didn't pick up on that, but you're right.
Oh my gosh. It was a stupid
yeah.
commercial for their action for like the action figures.
Hey,
It
we got to
made
see
no
Wheeler
sense.
Yuta kind of again on Ring of Honor.
Now, a friend of mine who attended the tapings recently, we do get Wheeler will start being on ROH very, very soon, which makes me kind of happy. But anyways, we move on from this to another squash match. Lance Archer murders somebody, but
Yeah.
I gotta say though, this was more back and forth than I thought it was going to be. But in the end, everybody dies because Lance Archer decimated Dion Rustin, and it was literally a squash match, a little more competitive than what we're normally used to. But ultimately, the murder hawk Lance Archer murdered somebody on my television. Why?
Yeah. I didn't even catch his opponent's name. I literally wrote down Lance Archer versus Does It Matter. Um, I just don't care. Archer's matches, it never feels like what I'm watching is genuine. Like it just feels like I'm watching something that's scripted to happen, which I get that is what we're watching, but I would at least like them to present something that doesn't feel that way. And it just feels like go out there and Lance Archer is going to murder you, and then that's what happens. And I don't know if it's because we had a squash match before that, but I actually ranked this as less of a squash match for myself because instead of not adding anything, it actually took away excitement from me. It was just it was one more of the same thing that I was already not happy about.
Yeah. Jesse, any thoughts? All right, next
And
caller.
no,
Jesse's just happy that Lance Archer didn't stink up the righteous in this match.
You know what? You're kind of right, but they kind of worked it out in that massive four trios match we got last week. But anyways, we move on because we get a backstage promo from CML star Atlantis Jr., who basically lays out the challenge for whoever walks away from our main event tonight wants to face for the ROH World Television Championship. But instead of it being on ROH terms, Atlantis Jr. wants to have this fight on CMLL terms in Arena Mexico, which I got intrigued. I was like, ooh, okay, hold up, wait a minute. As soon as he said that, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win this anyways, because I already figured who was going to win. But color me intrigued, and I'm kind of excited. I got to find that match when it is, because it's going to be great. I love that we have see more. This was a CMLL kind of heavy show because we got Titan, Atlantis Juniors running around here. I'm just like, they were smart putting these people in these specific spots. I'm excited for CMLL and ROH to kind of cross over a little bit because apparently every company needs to cross over now. More on that at 5, but I'm excited. This is great. I know a little bit about Atlantis Jr. because as somebody who likes lucha libre history and also tries to pay attention to it, I'm excited. And his father Atlantis Senior is also a big staple, especially in the lucha libre scene in Mexico. So I'm excited. You color me intrigued. So then we get into the good stuff for me because we get this match next between Diamante and Leyla Hirsch. This is stemming off of the six person tag from last week, in which Diamante and her team got one up on Leyla and her team. And Ian and Caprice reminded me, I was like, oh yeah, Leyla hasn't gotten a win over Diamante as long as I can remember in ROH either, whether it be singles or tag team. I thought this was a really fun match in which we saw Leyla finally get one over on Diamante. We'll talk about what happened afterwards because I have questions about it. I was like, okay. But before we get there, I'm gonna go to Andrew first. How do we feel about Leyla and Diamante?
It was not the most exciting or interesting match for me from either one of them. I feel like I've seen more exciting matches from them. I was happy it felt like they gave them more time than they've been recently giving women's matches. And the finish felt kind of flat. Like it felt all of a sudden like out of nowhere we got that roll up. Um, so yeah, it was. I was hoping for more of what we normally see from the two of them, and I felt like we didn't quite get it.
Yeah. Jesse, how do we feel?
the match itself was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was very slow. It was very methodical, which I was okay with. But the ending just kind of came out of nowhere, which I wasn't thrilled about. The main point that bothers me about this match wasn't even the match itself, but the fact that this was the only competitive women's match we had on the card in a 2-hour show. That is
Oh,
frustrating to me.
absolutely. Yeah, I was like, who is booking this? I'm like, Tony Khan, I smell your fingerprints on this. I'm like, stay out of there, man.
Yeah. There were 2 or 3 other matches
Which,
we could have lost and given some more time or had another women's match in there.
seriously. I was intrigued too because Leyla gets the win with the most devastating move in professional wrestling history, the surprise roll up, which then prompts Diamante getting caught on cameras like, we don't do that shit here as she fights Leyla. I was like, ooh. So it seems that Leyla and Diamante are going to be continuing to feud, which I'm not upset about. However, I do hope that they bring it a little bit harder next time they interact because we know that both women can go for it. But yeah, I agree with both of you. I was the fact that this was really the only real competitive women's match on the card this evening was kind of disappointing to say the least.
I do have to say it was quite entertaining watching the referee try to do the under the arm help carry Layla Hirsch up the ramp because he was like
He
twice
had to
her
do it on
height,
his knees.
and he was like, "Come on, let's go."
Just literally pick her,
Yeah,
pick her up. Honestly, Layla could probably carry him more
yeah.
than anything. Layla, ugh. All right, so now this is the part of the evening where we get our back-to-back championship matches. One that I thought was okay, one that was actually really entertaining. But we start with our ROH World Tag Team Championship match. The Undisputed Kingdom is defending the titles against 2.0, which is the team of Daddy Magic Matt Menard and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. I'm gonna be honest, you guys. I'm kind of happy that we got here. I was like, hey, at least we had some sort of consistent story. But then I look back at the story, I was like, it was kind of messy getting here because there were bits and pieces all over the place to get to this match. I was like, fine,
And
whatever.
it reflected in the match. The match was really messy too.
Yeah,
Which I know the four of them can do much, much better. But for me, I thought the match was messy. I thought the finish was really lackluster and kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of well worked, but it could have been so much better.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, there were some moments where you're like, oh, it's 2 actual tag teams wrestling each other in a tag team match. And then there were some spots that were just really rough, and it seemed like, I don't know if there was miscommunication or what was going on. Like, things just got flubbed back and forth. And I think it was an extra letdown that we had back to back matches ending by surprise roll up, especially when one is your title match. And I agree with you, Jesse. The ending almost felt like it was in slow motion. Like every
Mm-hmm.
step of the way was just like so awkward.
Like I
Um,
thought I could have kicked out of it. How
yeah.
slow it went.
So it was weird.
Yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed with this. And normally these four individually I know can do really, really well. And I like all four. I was like, hey, you know what? We actually got 2 tag teams. But I don't know if just the vibe was off. They couldn't click during the match. But yeah, this was messy. It seems that there was miscues, and I mean the Undisputed Kingdom. I have no qualms, and I figured they weren't going to lose here. Just kind of sucks because I'm like, well, I mean, I wanted this to be a little bit better than what it was, which sucks for both teams. But
I mean, I think that's really where the crux of this disappointment lies is the fact that we know that they all are great performers and can do this very, very well. And I think we're kind of judging on that because if this was 4 jobbers in their local town, this would have been a great match for them. But we knew the caliber of the workers going in, and it didn't deliver.
no, which is really weird because, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this. I like the Proving Ground match we got last week with the Undisputed Kingdom better than this one, which sucks to say. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that you were working with Che Cabrera and Bad Dude Tito, but that Proving Ground match was more competitive than this, and that's kind of disappointing.
And I'm happy that it wasn't a proving ground match. I'm happy we actually got a title match. because ultimately it didn't matter whether it was proving ground or title match because we knew the champions weren't going to lose. But another issue from this is, like I said, we're heading into Death Before Dishonor. What are we building to with that tag team title now that like the little bit of a storyline that we had building up ended like this?
It's done.
We've
Yeah.
done the blow up
Well,
already. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they really don't have any challengers set up for any of your champions. You know, I take that back. Athena and Billy are the only champions that actually have clear cut challengers for Death Before Dishonor. Obviously, Athena's situation is a little bit more murky depending on how things progress, but Billy has either Queen or Red as a challenger, which either one of those, banging. Like, totally here for that. That match will be fantastic. But you have no other challengers set up for your tag team champions. You have no challengers. I forgot that we had a trios champion somewhere running around.
Four of them.
Yeah, you are. We Wheeler has come back, but we have nothing yet in terms of our pure championship. And then on top of that, again, the same problem I had when Mr. Claudio Castagnoli was champion.
And Eddie
Mark
Kingston.
Briscoe is your
And
and Eddie Kingston. Your world champion is nowhere to be found because he's fighting in AEW
he's
right now,
yeah,
and it's crazy.
he's
And your
stuck
women's
in.
world champion is hurt.
Yeah.
He's the world champions doing these 4-man or 8-man matches in AEW for no other reason than just he's another person to throw into a team. Like it makes no sense.
I I still don't understand why you had your ROH World Champion be booked in the ladder match at Forbidden Door for the TNT Championship. I'm like, let Kyle Fletcher hold the title. Like at this point, I want Kyle Fletcher to be our World Champion, man. Like forget the TV title.
Or Dalton
Kyle Fletcher
Castle.
deserves that World Championship or Dog Castle. Don't even get me started. We have said this on multiple occasions, but we're gonna move on from this match into I don't know about you, gentlemen, but this was my favorite match of the whole entire evening. Even though this is pretty much a repeat of what we got at Supercard of Honor. But in our main event for the ROH World Television Championship, this was a 2 out of 3 falls match. Big Shotty Lee Johnson challenging Kyle Fletcher once again in 2 out of 3 falls. Before, like, this was like a long time before we got the first fall. I was like, oh, this is so good. And then everything after that was like, y'all got 5 minutes. Start spamming finishers.
Hurry it up, hurry it up. We're out of time.
But even still, I'm just like, give Kyle Fletcher the world title. That after this performance and everything he's been doing for ROH, just give this man the title. Like, please. He's here on a consistent basis. You know, him and Dalton Castle are always here. Give those two let them be the face for the men's division. Come on now. This match, while not necessarily as good as their encounter at Supercard of Honor, because I still put that one a little bit above this one. This was still a pretty solid match from both of them. Kyle Fletcher continues to amaze me. Big Shouty is always sound in the ring, but I like this match. This was a lot of fun.
This match was good. My match of the night was actually the opening match, Aaron Solo versus Teton. I just felt like the pacing was a little better. It started off really hot, and they were going back and forth really well, only slightly. There were a couple things like I noticed after that elevated, basically the last ride that Kyle Fletcher hit on Lee Johnson. The ref like visibly stopped when he was about to count 3. It was like Lee Johnson didn't kick out when he was supposed to, and you could see people in the crowd going like, "You stopped! Like that was 3! Like what are you doing?" So that was kind of weird. And the whole like can he continue moment with Lee Johnson, I felt like it just slowed stuff down instead of building suspense. It was unsurprisingly good action from both of them. They're like we've talked about, they're both really good in-ring performers. I felt like the third act should have been the longer part of it instead of the first act being the longer part. But the third act had some really good, like it. They were like, okay, now's the time to do everything, and they did a great job. I would have liked to have seen that actually stretched out a little bit and build some more suspense. Because I was never at a point where I thought Kyle Fletcher's going to lose the title in this. So having them get some early pinfalls and then build up with that excitement would have made me more interested in it. Um, yeah, it was a really good match. I don't understand the logic of Kyle Fletcher rushing in to beat the count out of the ring when they said that he wouldn't lose the title if he was counted out, especially when in the same match he was willing to use a low blow to retain the title. So why not just force your opponent? Like, why was Lee Johnson not the one rushing to get him in the ring? Why was Kyle Fletcher rushing to get back in? So it was just weird in some of those spots, but as far as the action went, they did a really good job in that.
I thought the action was good. I agree with you on a lot of your points. I didn't like the ending for the final fall. I feel like it kind of cheapened the match having the low blow be the ending there. I don't think it made either one of them look stronger. I think it was just maybe an excuse to have this feud go even further, which they're doing great in ring work. I need some more, out of ring, I suppose you'd say, work. Give me some more story behind it. Besides that, they're both really good and really talented because they are. Absolutely, but I need some emotion behind it for me to get fully vested in it. I think there was a few spots that should have been protected that they let Lee Johnson kick out of. Like there was the brainbuster into like the power bomb esque type thing that he did, and he kicked at it. I don't think he should have kicked out of that. I feel like that spot should be a little more protected. And then the big gaff right in the beginning where Lee Johnson went to jump into Kyle Fletcher at the very beginning of the match and just sailed right over it.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Fletcher kind of fell down like, oh, he hit me. He did not. He cleared you completely.
I I think they could have used the low blow in a better way, and this is something I've never understood about this best of falls is why not use an illegal tactic to incapacitate your opponent, give them a win, and then get a win for yourself? Hit them with the
Yeah, and then
chair,
cover him 2
get a
times in a row.
disqualified, pin them, and then you've got to. So he could have, instead of getting the roll up, another roll up victory.
Yep.
He could have low blowed Lee Johnson, taken the loss from that for a DQ, and then hit him with the brain buster and got the last victory. And if you want to if you want to keep this story going, then it's showing like Kyle Fletcher used the underhand tactic, and now Lee Johnson wants to come back, and maybe that could light a fire in Lee Johnson's promos or something.
Yeah, and then at that point, you get to move it into something like a last man standing
Yeah.
or an I quit match or something like that to add some kind of something to
Yeah.
it.
And I think this goes back to the critique that we've had for the last couple of weeks, shoot, the last couple of months, even for ROH too, is that as soon as we start to see some semblance of a feud, we finish it and they're like, oh, okay, let's move on. I'm like, wait, what? You only gave us like 3 or 4 matches for a feud. I'm like, why are we so scared to do long-term booking? Why? I don't understand it. Now, you don't need to do like whole sagas and have these stories play out for like 2-3 years, but it's not that hard to have like maybe a 3-month program. You could still do like the 3-match rule where in a feud where it's 3 matches in a feud and then you move on to the next one. But we have seen it done in other companies where you do the 3-match idea, but it's spaced out over like 2 to 3 months, and then you move them on to other feuds. Like
Midterm booking. Everyone's focusing on short term or long term booking. There's something to be said about having something in the middle.
It's not that hard. Anyways. So Kyle Fletcher retains his championship. He is still our ROH World Television Champion, which I'm happy for. I like Kyle Fletcher. He is one of the few consistent things on Ring of Honor outside of Billy and Athena, carrying this whole entire company on his back with how often he is in ROH to, defend his title and whatnot. Whoever is in charge of booking at this point, just let Kyle Fletcher could just be your world champion. Let that man, him and Dalton Castle need to be the face of your division. Like, I don't know why we're not doing that. But, anyways, that is how we end off ROH this week. Gentlemen, let's get into our empanada ratings for this. I'm going to go first. This is really easy for me. I give this like a 6 out of 10 empanadas. I think that it's been better than the last couple of episodes. But again, outside of a really great opening and a really fun match to end the episode, and then Leyla and Diamante, even though I have critiques with that, was pretty solid. Everything else, lack of storytelling and over storytelling, because you continue to have the Mama's Boys feud with Serpentico and Angelico. I feel like that feud could have is done. We should have put a bow on that at Super Card of Honor, but no, we're continuing to tell it. There just seems to be mismanagement of what should be long-term storytelling or storytelling to begin with, and feuds that should have been finished a while ago. Again, in-ring work is always going to be fun, but we need to choose better opponents if we're going to do squash matches. And I need stories. Like, give me something to want me to come back every single week. It's like a telenovela. I need to see what's going to happen in the next episode. But the fact that we don't have more than maybe one story, which is coming out of the women's division for anything, it's kind of disappointing to say the least. So I give this week a 6 out of 10 for me. Andrew, I'm gonna go to you next. What do you rate this week's ROH?
I give this a generous 6. I have not ranked Ring of Honor higher than a 6 since the Ring of Honor before Mid Card of Honor. And this is the highest I've ranked it in probably a month and a half, which the last time that I gave it a score this high was also a 6. They need to stop with the squash matches. They regularly make up at least half of the cards, and they serve zero purposes. They're just putting it out to have another match, and it's taking away from everything involved. Commentary called this a loaded episode, but it felt like a plate of food that was loaded with water chestnuts, celery, plain rice cakes, and wet tofu, with a little crumbles of bacon on the side.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
There's a reason why this is one of my favorite teams. Continue.
It just was. It was there. It was a night of matches. There were a couple of good things, and that's the best I can say about it.
Damn. Jesse, to round us out this week, what do you give this week's ROH?
When I first came in, I was like, I'm going to give this a pretty high rating because I was entertained the whole time. But then as we more talked about this and talked about how the matches played out and how nothing really made sense, it dropped some ratings. I was still entertained. I still had a good time watching it. But this is a 5.5 for me. It was just kind of average at best, which is unfortunate because this is not one of their better shows. But unfortunately, the not better shows is starting turning into their regular show, which I don't like.
Yeah. Again, this was a slight improvement of what we've been getting on, but my stance still is there. And Andrew can attest to this when we talked about this 2 weeks ago when it was just me and you. I am worried for Death Before Dishonor because Death Before Dishonor continues to be one of my favorite pay-per-views ROH puts on every single year. But we clearly don't know what we're doing outside of Billy versus either Queen or Red, or have a triple threat. That'd be kind of fire too. But outside of that, we have no direction of where we're heading for ROH, and it kind of irks my soul on a molecular level. So we're going to continue to review ROH, but I'm hoping that I need to start seeing some build towards Death Before Dishonor. At this point, it's kind of sad to say I will take even a sloppy build because then at least it's something. But you are giving me nothing, and that is the worst thing as a wrestling fan is when you give me nothing. That's for another day. But we got to get up on out of here. So thank you so much for tuning into this week's Bro. Gentlemen, hands in. We're going to do our handshake afterwards.
The Code of Honor is called. We have
Yes,
names and titles. We just don't use them.
I don't know. ROH forgets that they have titles, so until they remember theirs, I'm going to pretend that I don't know either.
Again, well done. Well done.
Ayo. But on that little pun right there, thank you so much for tuning into this week's Bro. We will be back next week from all of us here at the Bro and BC WrestlePod. Remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will see you next week for hopefully not another episode of Meh of Honor, but we'll catch you on the flip side. So until then, adios, sayonara, and Billy Stark's outro. Bleh.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.